Hello, everybody. My name is Matthias Hörtenhuber, and I'm a full-time infrastructure developer for NF Core at the SciLifeLab data center in Stockholm. And I will talk about what's new from the infrastructure team in 2025. Well, actually, since Julia talked last year. So who's the infrastructure team? It is, besides me, also Ewels, who you might know, Edmund, Miller, and Julian Pedrol. As you can see, we are spread around a bit Europe, and since this year, we have two new members who are doing 50% of the PhD for NF Core infrastructure. So it's Julian and Yuxin. And I will actually present some of the things they worked on during this presentation. Okay, so what will I cover here? I will cover how we at Infrastructure try to help you use NF Core pipelines, write NF Core pipelines and components, and also some deeper dive into the CI testing we kind of rebuilt there. And whenever I talk here about NF Core pipelines, of course, most of these things are true for whatever pipeline uses the NF Core template. So even if you're not part of the NF Core part of the NF Core pipelines, you still can benefit from most of these things. Okay, so how did we make it easier for you to use pipelines? The biggest thing just came out now with the latest NF Core tools version, where we rewrote the NF Core pipelines download command, which helps you to run a pipeline in an offline environment. So with NF Core pipelines downloads, and then you give the pipeline name, or the whole pipeline code will be downloaded, all the containers, configs you need for it, everything will be nicely packaged and ready to go. And before, it was written with a lot of regexes to get all the containers, but now we can use Nextflow inspect, and that should avoid some of the bugs we had before. All this work was done by Eric and Matthias over the summer, and it was very nice to see this big step which we were waiting for and working towards a long time finally being done. So I'm very happy to see that in the NF Core tools now. On the website part, we have now security advisories, which were also proposed and added by Matthias Sepper quite recently. And these advisories help us to communicate about certain issues for pipelines after they were released. Because once you release an NF Core pipeline, you can't change the documentation for that exact version, or can't change the code for the exact version. But in many clinical environments, you can't just easily upgrade to a new version. You need to be certified. But with this, we can kind of communicate, and it's also shown on the pipeline website of the specific version when there's an adversary related to it. So yes, if you want to see what we already have there, go to nfcore/adversaries. What is upcoming? On the one hand, we will add the NFCO2 footprint plugin to the template. If you don't know about this plugin takes your compute and gives you estimate of the CO2 equivalent emissions, and also in general, how much energy your specific pipeline run was used. And here you can see in the sneak peek, we will add this to the NF Core website, to every pipeline that has this plugin and has a released run. So we have a megatest run on our AWS bucket. This run will produce the NFCO2 footprint, and we will see on the website then how much this specific pipeline uses, or how big the CO2 footprint for this specific pipeline is in that specific test run, but it should give you an estimate on how much emissions you in general generate. Additionally, we are working currently on a new version of the NF-core pipelines launch command. Reminder, this command gives you an interface to add different parameters and select values in a controlled environment so you can easily start your pipeline. Until now, this is done on our server, but with this new version, everything will run locally, so you can also add sensitive data to your pipeline inputs without them being shared to any server. They will stay on your machine. And one last thing we're working on to help you make running or using pipelines easier. There will be an NF-core configs create command, which is similar like to the pipelines create command, a TUI interface that allows you to build an NF-core config for your specific environment. You select the common values and you will get out a .config file at the end, which you can then use for your cluster or your specific use case. Okay, so much about using pipelines. Now let's talk about writing pipelines and also components. First, pipelines. With NF-core Tools 3.0 release, we reshuffled everything a bit and made it easier to have template features. Now we even have template features you can opt into. So these are NF-core pipeline features, which you just can opt out. But for GPUs, for example, not every pipeline uses GPU or needs a GPU setup. They can select this template feature, and then they get GPU config and also corresponding test files. Speaking of tests, also NF tests was added as a template feature since last year. Again, these features mean you can have them, but you don't need to have them in your feature in your template or in your pipeline if you are not an NF-core pipeline. With the GPU, we actually have already one in release, and there are several other pipelines that are in preparation to use GPU support to run their code faster or in a more optimized way. Or for some, it is the only way to run the code. We also announced and did the support that the default branch doesn't have to be master for your pipelines. It can also be main. And 21 pipelines already did the switch. It requires a tiny bit of work, but we have a nice blog post from Júlia there, including a video. So you can follow along and do this switch if you want to be a bit more up to date in how your Git environment looks like. Next, a big change we had quite recently was that we added NF-test as the testing framework for pipelines. Before, the only test we had was basically, does the pipeline run? Now with NF-test, we can actually nicely test all the outputs of the pipelines and check what changes between pipeline versions. So what is coming with helping you to write pipelines? A bigger change, which Edmund is specifically working on, but also Maxime is involved there, is that writing the NF-core utils plugin. And we will, at one point, which should be soon, add it to the template. And that will allow us to remove all the utils sub-workflows. So you remember, a year ago or so, we moved a lot of the logic from the lib library, all the logic, meaning help messages, the general header of the NF-core, email notification, all these things were before in a lib library. Now they are in util sub-workflows, but with this NF-core utils plugin, we don't need these sub-workflows, we just need the plugins, and all these functions are part of the NF-Core utils plugin and can be a lot easier turned on and off. And something which every developer probably will be very happy to see, with adding NF-Core utils, you actually lose code. So this is the PR currently adding all of NF-Core utils to the template. It's not yet merged, so it will not come yet, but we're working on it. But it will look like that we lose quite a lot of code with this quite small switch, but it allows us to be a bit more granular also with what helper functions you use in your pipelines. And another upcoming feature will be the NF-Core pipeline schema build interface. Similar to the launch interface, it will just run locally. So again, you don't need to have any data sent to a server somewhere. And I will show you quickly a sneak peek in how it looks like. So it is a typical command line interface, which will be integrated in NF-Core tools. And then it opens this interface. As you can see, it's running on localhost. And similar to the old interface, but now without jQuery and a more modern JavaScript stack, you can change all these things. You see that we render the URLs correctly of a markdown, for example, but also other helper things like the pattern matching here. You can test the pattern you write in this form just to see if your regex is doing what you actually want. So this was a quick look. More of that will be soon in your NF-Core tools CLI. What's new in writing components? We added quite recently ontologies for modules, biotools, and idem. You might have seen that now we have this entries for and the meta YAML of the modules, but it not only changes stuff in the meta YAML, it actually allows us to automatically suggest input and output channels for a module based on the information biotools provides us. So with that, we make it a bit easier to help you make sure that you capture all inputs and outputs of a specific bioinformatics tool. Well, mainly bioinformatics tool. This is nice currently, but in the future, it will allow us to more automatically chain NF-Core components where you can quickly switch components around because we will know exactly what the input and output of each component will be beforehand. We have a new command added to the CLI. It's NF-Core test dataset list and NF-Core test dataset search. And this allows you to easier go through the test datasets repository. It's a bit of a beast, and we are actually working on trying to find a better structure for it. But as it is now, it is a bit of a pain to work with. And with this command, hopefully, it's a bit easier. So what does this do? If you add this command, you can do search, list, which lists all the files in a specific branch of the repository. And you can do search, which searches for files in the repository. For example, I'm searching for a file called Denmark in the modules branch of the test dataset, and then I can autocomplete, for example, this shape file for the Earth Science test dataset. We also now added the feature that when you write sub-workflows, you might want to mix NF-Core modules with your own modules And previously this was not possible, but work from Matteo and João made this not possible. So you can mix and match between different modular repositories inside your sub workflows. What's next? One of the things we're working on for components is topic channels in NF Core modules. What do I mean with this? One new feature of Nextflow are these topic channels, and it will make it easier for us to capture versions. So again, it will remove a lot of the code. Previously, we had this version written into a YAML file and needed to have quite wordy syntax to get this in. Now we can just write a tuple with eval command in it and emit this as a topic version, and then at the end we collect all these versions into the multi-QC. So again, reducing the amount of code we need to write and make the models a bit more compact. And last but not least, CI. So previously we ran a lot into this thing that we were running GitHub runners, and we just had 60, and 60 is not enough for especially NF Core hackathon. So we then last hackathon switched during the hackathon to Runzone, and it's really nice. We can really quickly spin up new runners. It's quite easy to set up, and also it allows us really easy to run GPU-based or ARM-based runners, or also runners with larger disk space. All this allowing us to run all the CI tests we have, which are quite a lot for modules and different pipelines, especially with NF test now, where you can write 20 or so tests in parallel. You can run them in parallel. And speaking of NF tests, as we use it now for pipelines and modules, we have quite a lot of tests, and in order to make that a bit less of a hassle, we added dynamic sharding, meaning that we can split up the tests on different runners and different jobs, and again save a bit of time while still running all the tests. Okay, so what do we see in next features added to NF Core? Because Nextflow will get quite nice new things, and we in NF Core, of course, will want to add them, but not too fast, so people can adjust to it and have time to update the pipelines. So, for example, the strict syntax we will add in spring 2026 in the template, but also required by linting. So linting will fail when this is not there. Workflow output we will first allow in linting and check for it in the workflow output for workflow outputs, and then in fall we will actually require it and have it in the template. For static types and records, and also the new process syntax, we will allow it in spring 2026, add it to the template in fall 2026, and then require it in 2027 spring. With that, thank you to all contributors and testers. It's very nice to always see new faces at NF Core infrastructure, because we have a lot of different things. We have web development, we have Python, we have CI runners. So whenever you get bored of Nextflow but still want to contribute to NF Core, you're very welcome to get in touch with us. Thank you very much.